Welcome to Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant Podcast. These are the stories of those who have received, given, and who are waiting for the gift of life, organ transplantation. Now here's your host and heart and kidney recipient, BJ Odom.
Welcome to the Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant Podcast, where we explore the extraordinary world of organ transplantation. I'm your host, BJ Odom. Each week, we share inspiring stories and introduce you to remarkable individuals sharing their own transplant stories. Be sure to support the podcast by leaving a 5-star review and subscribing on your preferred podcast platform. Also, have a transplant story yourself you'd like to share? Please send us an email or comments about the podcast. Simply email us, giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Again, that's giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget to connect with us on Facebook, Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant Podcast, as we welcome you to episode 72. Today's episode is a powerful reminder of something we all need to hear. If something doesn't feel right, don't ignore it. Our guest, John Perkins, learned that lesson the hard way. What started as feeling that something was off eventually led him down the road of needing not just one, but 2 life-saving transplants, a liver and a kidney. John's journey was long, painful, and full of challenges for both him and his family. But through it all, one hospital employee encouraged him to not give up and to keep fighting for his life. Today, John shares that story with us, one of resilience, hope, and the importance of listening to your body and seeking help when you need it. This is an episode you don't want to miss, so stand by as we have John's story coming up for you next. We have John Perkins on the line today, and I am pretty excited about finding all about his journey. But before we do, John, why don't you tell us just a little bit about yourself?
Well, guys, I reside in Texas, but Deep East Texas. Oddly enough, though, me and one other cousin are the only ones born here. My family, my mother's side's all California, dad's side's all Mississippi. And due to the Vietnam War, Dad met Mom in California. How we ended up here, that's just another whole story. But yeah, pretty much kind of a loner here in Texas because my family's all spread out. So we're kind of a tight-knit family, but I've lost Mom, Dad, and my sister all in the past 5 years, but I'm a happily married man with 6 wonderful children, got 5 amazing grandkids. The kids range from 26 down to our little surprise child about to be 9 years old. So she's kind of growing up with our grandkids. So she gets away with a whole lot more. You kind of know how that goes. Yeah, it's pretty awful.
You know, that's kind of like me. Yeah, that was kind of like me as a kid. I was one of those that came along 8 years after my brother. And then I had a first marriage and my second marriage. So my kids are actually like 8 years apart too. So yeah, it's kind of wild when you have them that far apart, but you know, they still take care of themselves. They take care of each other. So that's always a good thing.
It really is. And that's what it was. I was with one lady for 7 years and I've been with my wife now for 18. So it's kind of 2 different sets, but they really go in 3 sets of 2 if you break them down. And it's really neat. They all got their own unique relationships. And it kind of spread it out to where I evenly tortured myself throughout my entire life. You know, kind of worked out even that way. I'm a sucker for punishment. What can I say?
Well, here we are on the Gift of Life. We're always talking about transplants. And you, somewhat like me, I'm a double organ transplant, although I had my heart transplant in 2003 and then didn't get a kidney until 2015. But if I'm correct, you got 2 organs at the same time, or were they spread out also?
No, sir, you got it right. I was actually, I want to call it blessed. I guess it is better. I got them both at the same time, liver and kidney. Mine was from alcohol. Yeah, that's a story we can dig into a little bit deeper, but 6 years sober, of course. I did my end of the deal. But what happens when the liver went, I was left here in Lufkin during the pandemic, 2020. I was still driving a log truck January, February of 2020. And I knew I was sick. my brain wouldn't allow me to acknowledge it. Of course, I wasn't going to the doctor or anything. And I just kept driving. And there were times I just had to sleep all day long. It just sleep in between routes, in between, I'm at the mill. And anyway, long story short, I think I was driving a log truck at the very, very end. I think I hauled my last load sometime middle or late January of 2020. And by February, they took me out of my house by ambulance. And I had no health insurance, none. And I'd always had it. But for the past 3 years, I'd went into logging for the money. And so now here we are in a pandemic, and I'm in need of a liver. I was at the end stage liver cirrhosis, and no health insurance. So, of course, I got sent home. And when I did get back to the hospital, they didn't do any dialysis or anything. And I look back, the hospitals were ramped, people were sick. So, I get it. But I got lucky and Baylor took a chance on me. And by the time they got me to Baylor, though, the bile that had kind of leaked through my blood, the ammonia, they had taken my kidneys. So they did put me on the list for both right away. And luckily, I got both in November of 2020.
Awesome, then. Now,
it was really...
Now, have you...
It was quite a ride, though.
Because I was saying, if you were sick going into it, because it always has a lot to do with it, depending on how healthy you are when you have your transplants and how sick you are when you go in, can make a world of difference.
Agreed.
So how was it for you?
I'm glad you said this, because I see stories of others. They go to the doctor, they're not feeling well, and they get their diagnosis, but they're still clear-headed, right? You're still like, you get the shock factor. You get the, oh, wow, I didn't get that. My wife got that. In my case, I was so out of it, man, that I didn't even know who I was anymore. I was just kind of in hallucinations from the ammonia because I ignored it so long, trying to tough through. And so they told my wife I had 90 days to live late February. And this is with treatment. Granted, they weren't doing the paracentesis or the dialysis. The para is where they drain the bile that leaks. Your liver pushes your bile down to your organs, for us to poop, for those who don't know. So when your liver fails, it just starts leaking into your body, thus turning us yellow. So paracentesis, they draw that out of your stomach. Dialysis cleans your blood. They weren't doing that for me. And so, of course, the ammonia got to my mind, and your brain's always the first to go. It doesn't matter if it's cancer. When things get into your bloodstream, it goes to your brain quick. So, I had no clue. I woke up, it was July of 2020. I remember this because I love fireworks. We always did fireworks living out here in the country in Texas. And I guess my subconscious was still talking because, you're talking. I was communicating. I don't remember any of it. It seemed like I was functional, almost like I was just really intoxicated, but that was just the ammonia. But sometime around July, my wife got the insurance, and Baylor took their chance on me and moved me there to put me on the list, to prep me and test me and go through all the issues. Remember, this is during the pandemic. So I remember asking the nurse something about fireworks, because I guess the word July kind of triggered my mind to come to, because they had been doing the dialysis and the para at this point. My blood was becoming cleaner. And I remember they opened the blinds and they told me I was in Houston. I had no clue how I was there. And I had a sit-in because they said I kept untying myself and telling them I was going to work. My subconscious was still trying to get up and go to work, though I was tied down in a hospital bed. It's wild to look back and realize I was driving a truck 1 month before I was taken to the hospital. So that tells people how close to death you can really be and not realize it. No. And this is when I realized, I was like, uh-oh. I didn't totally understand what was going on. And the weirdest part is it felt like the apocalypse, because I remember the medical staff, they would come in and they had their normal coats, but they had to wear the normal mask, but they also had these huge helmets, almost like a welder's helmet, but rather than being shaded, it was a clear mask. And they were so hot. They were miserable. But, it was the pandemic, and this is Baylor St. Luke's, downtown Houston, Texas. And I'll never forget looking at the TV. My mind's still cloudy. I'm coherent, but I'm not totally understanding. And I look at the TV, and I'm just going to make these numbers up. Don't quote me. But it'll say, like diagnosis is on COVID. France, 68,032 dead. Spain, 88,000, 12,000 dead. It was thousands. And then I'm seeing on the news restaurants shutting down. I'm seeing bars shutting down. I'm seeing government buildings shutting down. And then the medical staff come in and they're doing treatments on me that I kind of understand, but I don't understand why it's so deep. And then at the same time, I'm looking at the TV, and I've already I'm at the point now, I can't leave if I want to because my wife has medical power. I was too far gone. So I was tied down and getting frustrated. Like, I'm not a prisoner. I haven't done anything wrong. Why can't I leave? And man, that was a very, very confusing stage for about 6 weeks. There was frustration, confusion, even anger, people trying to save my life. And I was angry at them because I couldn't understand it. And looking back, I'm very sympathetic to medical staff because they have to deal with this on a daily basis. It would drive me mad if I had to.
Now, let me ask you this. Of course, you said you were a little bit out of it for sure, but you went through all your emotions. Was there has to be that emotion that, especially you're seeing all these people on television that are dying from COVID. So your brain is thinking, I'm in the hospital. Am I one of these people with COVID and dying? Or was there, I would say fear would be a giant factor. Was that in there or not?
There were two different phases to that. The first phase, remember when I first wake up in July, I'm still foggy. So the first couple months, yes, I almost think it's almost like the E.T. movie. Remember at the very end, E.T.'s dying and you got all the tunnels because the hospital, the rooms, the floors, they had to move me like 3 or 4 times a week because as a transplant on the list, they had to keep me in a room to myself, number one. Number two, I'm downtown Houston during a rampant pandemic in July, August, September, October, November. So I can still remember going through these rooms and they literally had to plastic up the hallways to block off COVID units because they were growing so fast. And to say what you're saying, yes, it's like, so for the first time or the first part, it was like I had COVID and they were keeping me away from others. That's what my brain thought. But as I became more coherent, as my blood became cleaner from the treatments, it took a couple months. That's how far gone I was. It dawned on me it was the complete opposite. I understand now. Okay, I need a liver. But here's a funny one. When doctor come in to tell me, he goes, okay, and I'm finally understanding. This is probably August, September. He tells me, he goes, okay, John, we got to have a liver, but your kidneys are gone too, as you know. But according to your insurance, we have to wait 1 more month to list you. And I'm thinking, okay, I can hold on another month, no big deal.
Is this because of the? Because I know there are laws when it comes to receiving organs. Now, is this because you did say there was alcohol in your life? So was this meaning that you had to go clean for so many months before they could put you on the list? Is that what you meant by that?
Correct. I had to survive the 6-month rule, and and I had 90 days to live, and I had to survive 6 months. Where Baylor decided to take the chance on me is my wife found the insurance with Obamacare, and believe it or not, I used to attack Obamacare left and right because I was paying so much money for insurance early on in my driving career that it used to make me mad to see people get health insurance so cheap, and I'm spending hundreds out of each paycheck each week to cover my kids. It upset me. And the very thing I complained about ended up saving my life. Talk about an open mouth, insert foot moment.
Yeah.
And so she got the insurance. Baylor decides, yeah, we're going to take him, but I had to do the 6-month rule as you're asking. But in the meantime, they still needed to do those 2 treatments that I mentioned, paracentesis or dialysis, or I had 0 chance of making it.
Right.
But once they did those, that's when I started becoming clear and realized, okay, now I see what I'm facing.
Now, how was that battle, or with you being so sick, did it help? Because you're obviously, you're alcohol free now and you've stepped away. But did you have, or do you even remember having withdrawal symptoms, or what was that like going through all of that at the same time?
I was blessed because I was so sick, BJ. I don't remember.
Okay.
I'm sure if you put me back in that moment, kind of like what I was talking about, you're in a dream state. You're aware of what's going on, but it's completely opposite of reality. So if you put me back in that moment, I'm sure, yes, I had the withdrawals and they did have me on medicines for all that. But do I remember it? No. It's almost like going through a surgery that you're sedated during. You got the trauma, you got the scars, but you don't remember them cutting you open.
Okay.
It's kind of the same feel. It was really, my hardest battle was just staying sober because I didn't have to face the withdrawal. So it was like, that was kind of odd, at first. And looking back, my wife, I can't remember, but my wife did say in January, because I was so sick, they told me I had fatty liver. And this is another thing, guys. I went to the hospital in January-ish, and they did an ultrasound. They did a few little things, and they told me I had fatty liver, which is completely normal for people our age, in our 40s. They were dead wrong. My liver was completely dead. So if you drink, if you think you got issues, please go to the doctor, get a specialist, and find out. Don't do what I did, because you just go in and and you just take the first answer they tell you. It's probably wrong. They told me I had fatty liver 1 month before I was told I had 90 days to live. We both know cirrhosis don't grow that fast.
And I have heard from other people, because on this podcast we talk with, we cover the gamut when it comes to organs. And I have heard that from people with liver disease and problems with the liver, that a lot of times, that's kind of it. Yeah, you got a fatty liver, nothing to worry about. And it sneaks up on you a lot faster than you could even anticipate.
The scary part to me is they told me it was normal. To hear the word normal doesn't put any kind of fear, any kind of concern. And in other countries, fatty liver in your 40s is not normal. Mm-hmm. And if you look at our diets that we eat here, the granulated sugar, the sodium, I did some research being a liver and kidney guy myself, because I lost 140 pounds this past year and beat type 2 diabetes. And so one, I couldn't have sugar because I was using 60 plus units insulin a day, 310 pounds. But then in turn, I'm a kidney transplant survivor, so I can't have a lot of sodium, correct? So what are most sugar-free foods high in? Sodium to replace the flavor.
Right.
So I was like, it felt like my back was against the wall, but no, I did it. It's not as hard. If you really want to do something, then you can do it. You just, my first step was I cut out all my drinks and I started drinking water. Pure water, and it really helped, and kidney function improved, and I started cherry picking the diet from there. And the reason I'm going this way, you'd asked me before what changed when I was in the hospital bed. The first thing it was adrenaline. When I first found out, I'm circling back to the question where you said, what was my first reaction when I came clear-headed? It was adrenaline, and that's kind of where I'm cherry picking around this. Once I realized what I was up against, the doctor told me I need liver and a kidney, and I kind of kid around with him. I'm like, well, heck, why you got me open? Go ahead and swap it all out. I couldn't understand the magnitude of what I was fixing to undergo. Not even realizing they were cutting me in two different spots. I didn't even think about that. But my number one thing was adrenaline. And a shout out to my guy, Quincy Dukes in Houston. He was a aide there at Baylor St. Luke's. He just recently was married and has a baby, by the way. Congratulations, brother. This man is very dear to my heart, because when I was coming clear and realizing these things, I was really angry. I just wanted to get up, didn't want to believe it, and I wanted to go to work. Just wanted to go to work and forget it. Just go do my part. I didn't want to just lay there. But I kind of didn't have a choice, because I couldn't even roll over to wipe my own butt. I had gotten to the point, laying in bed for so long, I couldn't roll over, BJ. I could not roll over. And my kidney function and everything because it had me so swelled up like a puffer fish, at this point that it took 2 or 3 nurses to kind of gently put their hands on me to roll me, because being that sepsis, that swelling with liver and kidney, if you've ever had a boil, it's like that, but it's over your whole body. Everywhere it's swollen.
Now, how
Ankles.
long? Now, I hate to interrupt you, but how long were you actually from day one? Now, were you in the hospital this entire time from day one till the time you got your organs, or was there ever a point where you left?
From the ambulance mode, I signed myself out of the hospital a couple times. Once to see my second oldest daughter graduate. Another time was just me being a turd because I was sick. But yes, but I didn't stay long. I had to go back immediately. I was so bad. So yes, sir. It was from February till December. Now, around September, October, I never thought I was going to even leave the hospital, man. And the nurse that I gave the most trouble to, I'll never forget, she got to come in and she goes, "Well, Mr. Perkins, you've been released." And I went, "Wait, what?" It kind of scared me at first because I'm thinking, wait, I'm not off the list. I didn't do anything wrong. You know, your first thing you're thinking, what did I do wrong? I'm supposed to stay here. I'll get the organ. She goes, no. They've just agreed to let you go to my wife, by the way, we had to shut everything down here in Lufkin because we were buying our own place and we only had a few years left to pay on it. But because of the pandemic, I couldn't be 3 hours from the hospital to get a double transplant. Plus, I was also too sick. So she had to shut everything down, and her and my kids had to live in a hotel room close to the hospital. And due to this, I was actually able to go home to the hotel room, I'd say once or twice a week, but about 50% of the time, as soon as I got home, some labs would be off. I'd have to come back, I call it home, go to the hospital and get an infusion or some IVs or a procedure, something a doctor had ordered. But yeah, I was in the hospital 90 to 95% of the time for a full year.
Oh, wow.
But I did get to go home briefly to the hotel, of course.
Right.
It got so bad, I even was trying to sneak my way out of there. And I was telling the nurses that my dad was coming by. I shouldn't laugh about this to me because I lived it. And I know I was just making up a story, but I was telling the medical staff that my father was coming to pick me up because I just wanted to get out of there for the day. I was just frustrated. And he was going to go take me to look at my funeral plot, trying to make them feel sorry for me, just so I could get a break out of there. Of course, they called my bluff. But it's amazing the things you will try to do when you can't go. Because like I said, my wife had medical power. So even if I wanted to sign myself out and take myself off the list, it was out of my hands at that point.
And I know how you feel, because I know, like, whenever, and, you know, this has happened to me a few times, like something will, you know, I'll have a little bump in the road with my transplant and I'll end up being in the hospital. And I remember with pneumonia, I was in the hospital for a little, right around 3 weeks. And boy, I got to that 3 weeks mark, and I love my hospital and I love my nurses. But after 3 weeks, you're thinking, get me the heck out of here. I want to go home, because it is not easy. So I can only imagine what it's like being there for almost a full year.
And do not forget, this is not your normal year. This was 2020. From beginning to end, I don't remember the pandemic, man. I do not remember the pandemic. To me, the pandemic was my double transplant. There was no pandemic. I know there's an illness. I know COVID exists, but I didn't see everything shut down. I didn't see it.
Now, let's fast forward a little bit. You've been there a year. And now it is the day that the doctors, the nurses come in and say, this is the day. What feelings were going through your mind?
Well, there was 4 of them, actually. I had 3 failed offers. The first offer come in fairly quick. I think it was September-ish. It was right at my 6th month. They counted my 6 months in January, because I had stopped drinking around January, and they could tell by my labs it was true. So I think September, excuse me 1 second. Sorry, I just had that bypass. kind of tight in my stomach still.
Well, yeah.
So
we're both sitting here going, I can only imagine this interview because I just got surgery 2 weeks ago. You just had surgery. So it's a wonder we're not both going,
Between the two of us, I don't think we could make one complete Frankenstein, brother. I really don't think we could. We could get 82% maybe. But the first offer came in around September, and I was very coherent at this time, getting strong again. And like I said, my shout out to Quincy, he got me. Just to backtrack a second, I wanted to give you the shout out to him because the medical staff, especially this man, he really saved my life here because remember when I told you I couldn't roll over anything?
Mm-hmm.
He looked over at me one day and I was feeling sorry for myself. And he walked over and he goes, "Do you want to live?" And I looked at him and said, "Of course." He goes, "Well, you got to show me something because I can't do everything for you. You're not even going to survive the surgery." And that hit home to me. I'm like, I can't even roll over and grab this bar. So he said he went and sat back down in the chair, and he could have probably got fired for this. Threw the wipes at me. He goes, "You give me absolutely everything you got, and I'll help you." He says, "But I'm not going to help you till then because you told me you wanted to live." And he went and sat down. And I reached over and I tried and I couldn't grab the bar. And I rolled over. He goes, "That wasn't everything." And then the second time I got mad and I reached over and I couldn't reach the bar, but I was screaming in pain. As soon as I was giving up, I felt his arms behind me, gently grabbed me. He goes, "That's what I'm talking about." And from that moment forward, I got myself up and walking again before the surgery, by the way.
Good deal.
I was actually walking. I walked into that surgery. And if he hadn't have done that for me, I don't think I would have. Okay, so back to the September, the first one. The organs come from an older gentleman. I cannot remember the age, but I was only 40. I was diagnosed at 39, but I was 40 at this point. And the team decided, let's try to get some just fairly younger. And yes, they do try to match ages when possible. Not exact, but accordingly. They try to get everything, as to detail as you possibly can. And I was okay with that. I still felt pretty good. At this point, I just got myself walking again, so I was kind of enjoying that high. So I wasn't really totally ready to go into the knife. I was really enjoying just being back up, man. It'd been 7-8 months since I walked. So number 2 comes in around October, and I remember the call. My wife took it. It always comes in from a private call, and they're always real late at night. All 4 of mine were late at night, between 1 and 3 in the morning, all 4. And we go up to the hospital. We do our preps just like before, 2 or 4 hours of MRIs, labs, check everything, EKGs, all your normal stuff. And I remember laying there. And I was fine. My part was fine. And they said the organs were fine. And an entire day passed. And another day passed. And they kept telling me excuses like they're doing some more testing, but it's a go. This is a definite go. But they're doing some more of this, that. I was even told once that the operating room was just overbooked. And I'm thinking to myself, overbooked? You're too full for a liver and kidney transplant? BS. There's no way. What are you doing? There's nothing. I can't think of very many surgeries more important, but okay. And 2 weeks passed, 2 full weeks. And they came and told me, okay, it's been canceled. I was like, what do you mean canceled? I was not supposed to find this out. The news leaked to me, but it's because I was so upset. A nurse had finally found out the news. A young man in his mid-20s was a donor, and he had died in a car accident. And his family, due to religious reasons, he was brain dead, but they didn't want to pull the plug. And they actually took it to court. My team took it to court, but we lost. And they were actually going to give the organs after a couple weeks. But once you're brain dead for so long, the organs start to die. So this is very important for people to know. Yes, sir. So by the time the family realized that their loved one, he wasn't going to make it, he or she, I'm not for sure on the sex, but that they weren't going to make it, the organs weren't viable. So once I leaked that news, it kind of gave me some comfort, to be honest with you, because I put myself in the family shoes. I'm like, I get it. It's sad. I'm not, but I get it. Now this third one, this hurt. Now it's about October, middle October, and I'm starting. It's late October. It's close to Halloween, and I'm losing my strength again. Remember I told you I got walking and doing everything. Well, it's starting to fade. And I'm down to 110, 115 pounds. And I used to be rock solid 215. It took 100 pounds off of me in a year. So I was a logger, worked beer trucks. I had some broad shot. I didn't work out in gyms. I worked out at work. That's all the work I ever did was working trucks. So, and not just long haul. I did all the short haul heavy work. And it ate that up quick. So we go through the things. The organs are already here this time. Because, I'm a little picky on this. I ask them, like, are the organs here this time? I'm not going to sit here for 2 weeks for nothing. I'll wait at home for that. And, just being petty. But they said, no, we've actually got the organs. So I'm super excited. Nervous, of course, but excited. And of course, and I'm getting weak. So I'm thinking, oh, just in time, just in time. And the craziest thing, all my labs, everything was perfect except one thing. My white blood cell count was elevated a hair. And due to this, they pulled the plug on me and gave the organs to another individual in the hospital. BJ, I was devastated. I didn't know what else to do. Because the thing is, they didn't know why they were elevated. They ran lab after lab after lab. I even told them, I said, I don't know why, but since I was young, I've always had a slightly elevated white blood cell count. It didn't matter. On paper to them, that did not matter. And I told them I remembered this even all through my years, the few labs I had done. For some reason, my labs are always slightly elevated. And anyway, we went home. I told Tammy, my wife, I said, I can't fight anymore. I got myself up. I got myself walking. Can you please take me home? I want to see my friends. And I want to go fishing a couple more times if I can. And I'm ready to go. You get tired. And I was tired. I wasn't angry anymore. The anger was gone. I actually had some understanding. I was disappointed, but I was tired. And I didn't have the energy to fight. And my best friend, Jimmy Clegg, Tammy didn't know what else to do because I wasn't talking to anybody. I wasn't on Facebook. I didn't use the groups. I secluded myself for a year. The closest of my people couldn't get to me. And Jimmy Clegg, my best friend, he calls me. He goes, brother, give me one more week. Just stay one more week. And I was like, all right. After that, you're taking me fishing. And he said, deal. And all I'm thinking about is fishing. That very night at 1:30, they call and they say, okay, we've got the organs, blah, blah, blah. Do you accept? And I'm like, yes, I do. I was like, here's another thing. I said, if these organs don't work, take me off the list. I'm tired. I'm getting weak. Give them to someone else. If this don't work, I'm done. And I went up to the hospital, and I guess they sent this message to my team or something, but I'll never forget. And this time, usually I go, it takes like 2 to 4 hours to get me ready. It only took like an hour or two. And I'll never forget, this is the first question you were asking about, what it's like when they say, are you ready? This was my moment. I've been through this 3 times before, now 3.5 technically. And every time I've been let down. So I'm ready to go home and pass away. And the guy who I think is just a nurse is leaning over my head is actually the anesthesiologist, but I wasn't paying attention. And he goes, Mr. Perkins, are you ready? I said, what are we doing now? I'm thinking an MRI or something. This is it. I'm about to put you under. Oh, well, wait, what? And that was one of those kind of like 5 more minutes. It was like, oh, just all that mess. All that, excuse my language, all that crap I've been talking. I didn't mean it. Just a second, please. It hit me, man, like a ton of bricks because I was like, oh, wow. And I started asking them the silly questions like, you guys do this all the time, right? This is routine, liver, kidney transplant. This is routine, right? It kind of hit me, the excitement, the nervous, and even the fear. That was the first time the fear of the surgery actually hit me because you're fighting for your life, brother. So when you're fighting for your life, your back's against the wall. But when you finally get to the edge to where it's on you to jump, it's a game changer.
Now, and I remember mine, when they told me they had mine, my wife was all, jittered, and my kids were jittered up, but I'm like, let's get this show on the road. Let's make this happen. I'm ready.
Yes. Mine was just a little different because it was all the letdowns. Did you get your first offer back then?
Well, I don't know if it was, let's just say yes, because they told me the night before, and they said they'd probably be taking me to surgery the next morning. my wife was actually, she would come back and forth to the hospital, leave me for a few days. And then actually she was coming to pick me up that morning because in my case, they'd only keep me for like 10 to 15 days at a time. Then they'd have to release me for 3 or 4, and then they could bring me back in. And so actually it was my last night in the hospital. And then they came in and told me, got the wife and the kid, but then it never happened, kind of like you. And, you never get the full story because of HIPAA laws, but I believe they had an organ lined up for me and they ended up finding a better organ, but it all happened within a 24-hour period.
Now, here's another swing or another catch to why mine were so different. Remember, mine's during the pandemic once again. Now, when I got my organs, this fourth offer came in November, but the COVID test we had at this time in the middle of 2020, late 2020, they took 24 to 48 hours to come back, remember? So, and if I have COVID, but I don't know it, and they do this double transplant on me, and I wake up with COVID, back then, I'm a goner.
Yeah, that's a
no way could I survive that. Exactly. So that was another kind of stipulation. They had to shoot me to the hospital quick, do at their time, the highest, quickest COVID test they possibly could on me up to date at that moment, which still took hours. And, because luckily I'm in downtown Baylor, St. Luke's, because, the normal labs took 24 to 48. So they used their best technology they had for patients like me and others. Because like I said, COVID would have taken me out. So when I got there, they had to seclude me, make sure I don't have COVID. There were extra, and then to make sure the organs don't have COVID laying in them.
Yeah, you got. Yeah.
So there was a lot of extra steps. And that's another thing I look back on. I can't believe I got a liver and a kidney from alcohol cirrhosis with no health insurance during the pandemic.
Now,
so whatever people are going through, they need to keep faith and hope because you just don't ever know.
Oh yeah, I've learned that in life. I don't know. I've told you a little bit about myself, but I had heart disease as a child. My parents were told I'd never live to see, the 1970s, and I've just turned 70 now.
70 now, yes. Congratulations, man.
And I always tell people, never give up because you do not know what tomorrow will bring. That even with medical science, you just never know. Who knew of heart transplants back when I was 13 years old, getting, my second major heart surgery? No one knew that, there's going to be transplants someday. So yeah, you never know what tomorrow is going to bring. So never give up and never take, this is the final answer as the final answer. So how?
And another part. Go ahead.
I was just going to say now with the double transplant all at the same time, probably I would say the same donor for both.
I got lucky with that. Yes. Now that would have really been wild. I'm sure it's happened to where maybe you've had two different donors at the same time. I wonder how rare that is because I'm sure it's happened. But yes, mine were both the same guy. The only thing I found out about him so far is I got leaked info. He was mid-20s and he died on a motorcycle accident somewhere in Oklahoma. I've written my letter, but it's partly my fault. I waited 2.5, 3 years to write my letter. Now, the reason I did wait, I haven't heard back, by the way, for that answer, and I just wrote mine last November. But the reason I waited 3.5 years or so is I ballooned up after my surgery. I come home, I got diabetes now, 310 pounds. I think the last thing I wanted to do, BJ, was write to this family and realize, their healthy 25-year-old son or, nephew, husband, father, his liver and his kidney went to this fat alcoholic. I had a lot of guilt. And then I'm fat. I'm on diabetes. I felt like a burden to society almost. And the best thing I ever did was one day I got on Facebook after, I think it was 2022, mid-2022, and I got on Facebook and I just typed in liver transplant. And I joined a few groups and started meeting friends. I started mingling, And a few friends in particular started pushing me real hard. I was seeing them exercise. I was seeing them do things that I really didn't think we could do, or maybe I was just too much in my emotion. And the more I kept seeing them do it, you can react. How you react is up to you. At first, it was jealousy. I was jealous of these individuals. I kept looking at them going, blah, 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 blah. But then one day, that jealousy, I decided to turn it into fuel. I was like, you know what? I'm going to show them I can do it too. And I was 310 pounds, June of 23. We went on vacation to Six Flags over Texas with the kids. I had to rent a scooter to ride me around, and I could only last 2 hours. And I had to come home, and I was sick. I had to lay in the bed for 8 days. And I finally decided enough was enough. And that's when I decided to cherry pick my diet. I started drinking only water. I went on high protein, low carbs. After that, I started walking up to 5 miles, 4 to 6 days a week. Now, granted, that was not right away. This all accumulated. This started off with my fat butt on a treadmill, waddling through a quarter of a mile, breathing heavy. That's how it started. That 5 miles is not how it started. You have to do small increments.
Oh, yeah.
But long story short, I lost 140 pounds, and I've got my type 2 diabetes in check. My A1C has been 5.4 for 9 months straight. And I take prednisone every single day, just 5 milligrams, but that shoots your sugar up.
Yeah,
and people need to know is like, if I'm liver and kidney, if I can't I'm not supposed to eat a lot of sugar or salt. And I found a way to lose 140 pounds. It's doable.
One thing I always tell everybody too, and, people with transplants kind of, realize that down the road. No two people have the same body structure, the same body chemistry. And I remember that's one of the most important things I remember, because I'd ask all these questions in the beginning. Well, how long is the heart? How long can I live? What about that? And they said, every transplant is different. No two are the same. No two people are the same. So everybody's
I'm glad you brought that up too.
Everybody's journey is going to be just a little bit different.
Yes. And I look at the kidney life because, our medicines that we take, of course, attack our kidney, the Tacro, all that hidden sodium that's in it. And, they say our average kidney can only last 8 to 12 on a deceased donor. But my guy was in his mid-20s. And, I'm telling you my story, how I'm dieting. I got my blood pressure and blood sugar under control. So who knows? Who's to say I can't get 25 years out of this kidney? I'm not saying that that's going to happen. But like you said, everybody's different. So don't let the statistics scare you. I've seen people in groups, on the transplant groups, see the stories and get spooked and literally remove themselves off the list. And that's not the way to go. It's not as bad. It's just, don't let fear stop you. That breaks my heart when I see people let fear, that they choose because they don't want to. That's different. But I've seen people with just fear alone from this literally take themselves off the list.
And that's why, because I know, we've done a little bit of talking before we decided and did the podcast, but you're like me too. You're not afraid to go into the hospital and they say, hey, I'm John. We got a guy who needs a liver and a kidney. Could you go talk to him? And when you go in and you show them and they see what you've accomplished, you can really change minds. And I've changed more than 1 or 2 minds as, someone needing a heart transplant saying, I don't think I can go through this. I can't do this. I don't want to do it. I would go in, walk in, not a walker, no cane, shake their hand. Yeah, I had a heart transplant, 10 years ago. Are you kidding me? You had a heart transplant? You look normal. And I've changed minds. People had said, I'm not going to do this. And after, meeting and having a, short conversation, I have changed minds. And I think it sounds like you kind of do the same thing. You talk to, people might be in waiting right now.
Those who would ask, why would I openly say alcohol caused it? Alcoholic of 20 years now. As a functioning alcoholic, I worked. I had our home and land paid off by the time we were 40. It's just a double out on an acre. My kids love me. It wasn't always. I had some very rocky years where they didn't. But Yeah, alcoholic. Why? So why would I openly say this? Why would I openly say how sick I got? Because of what you just said, to give hope. Because they need to see it. They need to know. And that's why I talk about it so much because, and I used to couldn't do this. It took me 2 years. For 2 years when people would ask me, so what caused it? I would say a whole combo of things, diabetes, this, and this. Nope, not today. Now I straight up tell them alcohol. Granted, I'm sure there were a couple other little factors, but if I'm going to be honest, it was 80% alcohol and probably 15% acetylcholine. I can never say that word. That's like Worcestershire. I can never say the Tylenol acetylcholine. It's just my curse, man. I can't do it. But it just, I don't know what happened. I did it one time and then I did it again and it got a little easier. And then after about the fourth or fifth time I did it, and somebody thanked me for saying it, that they needed to hear that. And when I realized it was helping people, what better gift could there be, man? If you must go through this, if we must do it our own way, and ours is all different, of course. And if we all must do it our own way, if it's got to be bad, why not do as much positive with it as you can?
Well, I'll tell you one thing that really turned me. I did stand-up comedy for a long time, and I did a few little jokes. Nothing derogatory about transplants, but I made few little jokes about it along the way. And this was only probably maybe 6 months to a year after my transplant. I had a big burly guy that looked like he could whoop up on me, and I could have been, dead in 3 seconds. You see the guy I'm looking at, right?
Exactly. I've seen him.
and he comes up to me after the show and he goes, "Did you really have a heart transplant?" And I'm going, "Oh my God, what did I say? What did I do? Why is this guy angry?" And I go, "Yes, sir, I did." And I almost get teary-eyed every time I tell this story. But he hugged me like I'd never been hugged before. Said his brother died a couple weeks ago. This was the first time he was out since his brother died. His brother was a donor, an organ donor, and seeing me on that stage reminded me of his brother. And that hug meant a lot.
I tell people, regardless of what you believe in, I keep it real simple. I keep it to a few little simple quotes so I don't step on any toes. But if God is love, then that's what it is right there. I think we just have to open our eyes and look around sometimes, man. Just, if you've ever been in a supermarket and just struck up a conversation about transplant, and then all of a sudden, you may have went into this supermarket for just to grab a couple things, you're frustrated, just trying to hurry up and get home, and the least expectant person turns around and they want to know more. And they want to know more.
Yeah.
And they want to know more. And by the time you get home, what turned out to a trip to the supermarket that was horrible, you're at home whistling while you're cooking. It's wild how it can completely turn your day around. Something this awful, but yet it has such a positive impact.
Now,
it's something about, trauma brings people together. Humans naturally clash. Where hate's natural, but something about trauma is the one thing that brings us together.
Well, I know one thing, being 22 years out, I remember, when I first did get my heart transplant, it was far and few between that you talk to people that knew anything about a transplant, knew anybody with a transplant. And now that I'm talking 22 years later, it is very surprising when you're out in public and you might mention, like you say, in a grocery store or in some kind of setting with, other people, that you've had a transplant. How many people actually now seem to relate, like I know, or I knew, or I had a cousin, and it is, which is a good thing, because it is more and more common to be able to associate with people that are familiar with transplants.
And people need to know this. I'm glad we're talking about this because, for you, example, when you got yours, it wasn't common. You couldn't talk about it. There was no social media. I mean, you could talk about it, but nobody was going to understand. They couldn't understand the meds you were on. They couldn't understand how you felt. But as time has went on, like people that are my age, they're still kind of adapted to the old school ways of thinking, and they're deep in their minds because I was guilty. I really thought it was still one of those things like it's not as popular, or not. I don't want to call it popular. It sounds horrible, but more accepted because it really is. Once I got in this transplant community, it's like a family. And you didn't have that at first. And a lot of people think that don't exist, but they're wrong. There really is a community out there, and there's so many different platforms. I mean, there's one for everybody. Whatever it is you're into, there is a transplant platform there for you. And it's wild to know because I'm not as old as you, but I think back to, I was born in 1980. And I'm thinking back to Frankenstein stuff, about that joke. And here I am living the dream, I'm down a liver, 2 kidneys, a gallbladder, and a foot of intestine. I'm like, come on now, I'm hanging on by a string.
Now,
I saw RoboCop.
Yeah. Now, what is it that because I know we're running against the clock here, and I hate when that happens. But and you just went, I told you I had a triple hernia surgery here about 2 weeks ago. Now, what are you going through exactly? What is it? Because you've had surgery. That's
yeah. So what happened? I got my double transplant in 2020. I think it was 2 days after my transplant, Dr. Goss, who was my main surgeon, they had realized that where they connect your liver to your bile duct, anytime you cut yourself, you scar.
Yeah.
Well, this is plumbing, just like plumbing to your house. So my main bile duct, the plumbing going down, it had formed some scarring on the inside of the duct, which all it did was narrow it. It did not close it, but it narrowed it. And like a narrow drain in your kitchen sink, you pour too much water down at once. If it's narrowed, it's going to back up. Same idea. So they go in, they put up what's called a biliary stent, and it works the same way as a heart catheter. But it goes in, it's a long hose about almost 2 feet long, about 12 inches of it goes inside of you with a wire, and it goes down into your bile duct, and then they balloon it up for you. Now, the idea was we were going to flush it with saline, and they were going to keep ballooning it to try to flush the scar tissue away. It didn't work over time, and I thought I had to live with it forever. And then I lost the weight, did all the things I told you. This is the reason I went on a streak to lose all the weight, is to feel better. I thought I had to live with this port forever. Last November, my team told me since my diabetes was in check and I was down to 180 pounds that we could do the what's called a bypass. Same idea as bypassing your heart arteries, but it's going to be with my bile duct. Or I could live with the port forever. At this time, I'd already had it 3.5, 4 years. Actually, it was my 4-year anniversary checkup. I'd live with it for 4 years, no infections. They replace it 4 times a year. And he said I could live with it, or he could cut me all the way back open, go in and bypass it. And just the thought of being busted all the way back open when you don't have to, that's hard.
Yeah.
But I was like, so I don't have to do this. Like I got an option. But the truth is, I wanted to swim. And another one, I didn't want to be 60 years old down the road and possibly need another kidney by then, do the meds, maybe not. But by then, I wouldn't have this option because of my age and the damage of the meds through the years. I wouldn't want to be sitting in a chair at 60 years old wondering, why did I not do that 15 years ago? I want to swim with my grandkids. So what I did is I rolled the dice and I told them, let's do it. Let's do it right now, back in November 24. And he said, well, it's the holidays. Let's wait. And I didn't want to. And they finally got my wife to talk me into it. We scheduled it January 24th. And the day before surgery, they called to say the doctor got organs in, so we had to reschedule. And I was so upset. A week later, my father died. And I was the last heir of the main. I had my grandkids, but my sister was gone, my mom was gone, so I had to handle my father's debts and stuff and do everything as he wished. So I think it was God looking out for me, and it gave me time to get in better shape. But luckily, they didn't have to cut me all the way back open. They only had to go crosswise this time. And I go back in a month, they're going to squirt the dye in it, and they're 99% sure they got it. And if it works, then the port comes out forever and mission accomplished.
Good deal.
But the one thing I'm glad, they told me I could live with it now, BJ, but here's the catch. Once they went into me, They found out that that biliary port had been backing up, and that's why they had to remove a foot of intestine. So if I hadn't have done this, who knows what would have happened?
That's why you got to always.
It would have continued to back up.
Well, you always got to keep in touch with your team. They will keep you going and going and going. Well,
yeah, that's it. You got to trust them.
Like I said, we're running up against the clock because the good people I work for don't like these to go more than an hour. So before we do go, is there anything that we missed that you want to make sure that we get out and let everybody know about today?
For me, being alcohol cirrhosis, guys, listen, it's the top two most addictive and deadly substances in the world now is alcohol and tobacco. The only two that are completely legal. We know we have a pandemic of depression, anxiety. We've got issues. Life's hard. Go to your doctor. If you're sick, if you've got pain, if you've got anxiety, do not self-medicate like I did. I thought I could fix it on my own and be tough. Don't be tough. Swallow your pride. If it's mental health, physical health, please go to your doctor. Swallow your pride. That's what we need to lean on each other. There's no shame in needing help. There's not a soul on this planet that's not carrying a burden they think's too heavy. So whatever it is you're going through, get some help. Do it privately if you must, but get the help. For me, it was the liver groups, and it worked. We do it your own way, like you said. We may be all different physically. We're all different mentally also. Do it your own way, but get the help.
All right, John.
Because I did this to myself from stubbornness.
Well, John, I appreciate you sharing your story, and I know it's going to help others who listen to the podcast. Plus, you and I have talked because we both kind of have that positive attitude, with hospital visits and things like that. So down the road, I think you and I are going to get together again and kind of express how we go into the hospital with a little bit different attitude than everyone else. And I think that's going to make for a good podcast also. So let's keep in touch.
I'd love that because I really love doing that. Definitely.
And we'll do it soon. And like I say, I want to wish you the best of luck. And you have my phone number. I got your phone number. And the line is always open to you, even if you just need to talk to someone.
Same as you. And it's a pleasure to meet you, brother. And I feel like I've made a new friend already.
You have. So, John Perkins, not only does he have a kidney and a liver, and again, thank you for being on the Gift of Life podcast.
Thank you.
I want to thank John Perkins once again for sharing his story with us here on the podcast. And each week we have a new heartfelt episode for you. And if you have a transplant story, please email us at giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook and don't forget to like and share this episode with family and friends. Plus that 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. Another podcast you might enjoy is myself and former radio partner Bill Stevens. BJ and Bill, the podcast. All a part of the Podcast Playground Network. We want to thank them for making this podcast possible. Until next time, I'm BJ Odom. Thank you so much for being a part of our journey and reminding us all to appreciate each and every day and to treasure the extraordinary gift of life.
He was running on empty, heart fading fast. Doctor said, man, you ain't gonna last. But a stranger's kindness, a gift so true, turned the night sky into something new. He got a second chance, he got a brand new spark. Like a freight train rolling back from the dark. Gift of life, let the story be told. One heart beats, another takes hold. Give a little, save a soul. Ain't no greater rock and roll. 15 years later, the road got rough. The fight ain't over when the climb is tough. Needed a kidney, the race was on. Another hero stepped up, kept him strong. Every breath he takes is a tale of hope. One life saved, another can cope. Gift of life, let the story be told. One heart beats, another takes hold. Give a little, save a soul. Ain't no greater rock and roll. doctor's hands, a donor's grace, running on down to a brand new place. Second chances don't come twice, but when they do, man, they feel so nice. So let's spread the word, let the people know. One yes today lets a miracle grow. You don't need wings just to save a man, just a little love, a helping hand. Gift of life, let the story be told. One heart beats, another takes hold. Give a little, save a soul. Ain't no greater rock and roll. BJ still rockin', still standing tall, thanks to the ones who gave it all. Gift of life, hear the sound. Pass it on, pass it down. The Gift of Life podcast, hosted by BJ Odom. Listen now.